Meanwhile, South Africa's Lerato Mataboge has been elected African Union Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy. She'll form part of the AU's secretariat, which conducts the day-to-day activities of the body in Ethiopia. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo has more from Addis Ababa.
I'm in conversation with the jewel of South Africa right now, someone who is going to be flying our flag high on the African continent. I'm talking about Lerato Mataboge. She's the newly elected African Union chairperson for infrastructure and energy, and it's been quite the arduous process, isn't it, Commissioner? Congratulations. Let's talk about what it took to get here, from the nomination right up until the voting process and your ultimate election.
Thank you very much, firstly, for the congratulations. I'm now officially the Commissioner-elect for Infrastructure and Energy after being elected by more than 2/3 majority by the member states of the African Union to take over the helm. However, the journey to getting here is that each of the regions of the African Union had to submit potential candidates, a myriad of candidates. We had many from Southern Africa, for example, to vie for 6 commissioner posts for the African Union. Out of that process, we then, all of us, had to undergo a competency assessment, interviews, leadership assessments, etc. So quite a rigorous process of assessing our competency through a panel of eminent persons and independent HR company. So to show that merit had to play a role in it. So to have made the shortlist to actually be put forward for election means that we performed very well as South Africa. So it's quite a big moment for the country. But of course, we take over the helm as a Pan-African candidate who's going to actually execute the continental agenda and not just a South African agenda. But to be a South African nominated candidate is quite an honor.
Yes, and it wasn't just you. There was also Dr. Qobela, who was vying for the position of education. But you also already playing a leadership role back home, because you're soon going to be moving to Addis Ababa permanently as a DDG in the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Just tell me, and perhaps, those of us who don't know what happens behind closed doors. Yesterday there was a closed session, is there caucusing? What exactly happens? How are you convincing others that, you are the right person, not just you, but the other 5 regions of the continent?
I think one of the most important principles and what gives me courage to walk into the role and actually execute the Pan-African vision is, I believe the vote that we received yesterday as South Africa was a vote of confidence in our country's ability to lead the infrastructure builds program of the continent, to lead the policy, direction, as it were, of the continent. It was really a vote for South Africa. Out of 49 eligible countries that voted, we got 41 votes. I think that should say, in terms of a resounding mandate, we really got a resounding mandate, and we're quite grateful about it. As to what happens behind closed doors, there's a reason why it's closed doors, except to say that we really got the continental mandate, and it's for us then to succeed and to make sure that we see through the Agenda 2063 vision that has been set for us to accelerate.
Speaking of Agenda 2063, your role is basically running the day-to-day activities here in Addis Ababa for the next 4 years, which means, yes, firstly, you're moving soon, but it also means that you need money for this, and you need to operationalize a lot of things, including the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, railway systems, the blue economy. There's a lot that you will be dealing with. Energy, just transition is something we've been speaking about a lot at home. Where are you getting the money? And how are you not remaining a toothless dog, as some have accused the AU of being?
Well, as a new leadership, first and foremost, we are quite optimistic that we're going to bring some teeth to the AU. We don't believe it's a toothless dog, but we believe we bring an additionality to the organization. Certainly, there's a huge resource mobilization that's required on the continent, especially in the area of infrastructure and energy. We're quite alive to that. First and foremost, we're going to have to leverage our domestic resources better. We do have resources on the continent. We've got development finance institutions that are quite liquid and that are doing great work. But because of the multiplicity of institutions, we need to coordinate ourselves better so that we can, from an economies of scale standpoint, be able to tap into a wider, bigger pool of resources, number one. That being the foundational resource that we're going to leverage, including, of course, member state contributions, we can then bring in external partners to come and supplement where we have gaps. Instead of currently where really our focus is on external financing, and then we are the ones that are filling in the gaps. And we want to make sure that we centralize the Pan-African agenda to what we do. And priority in doing that, we need to have African financing.
Just lastly from my side, I mean, you're already charting the way forward, but how urgent is this task of moving forward when you look at what's happening in the world, how there's a global shift, and the greater call for the African continent to firstly unite, it's not a new call, but also to ensure that they really hone in on the resources and minerals that we already have, but to benefit the people of this continent?
This task is quite urgent. We are talking about a continent that has over 600 million people that don't have electricity. That's close to 43% of our population. We're talking about a continent that only has 25% broadband penetration. We're talking about a continent that only trades about, 18% with itself, meaning that our infrastructure that connects us and enables us to trade is not there. So the task and the priority for infrastructure is very, very urgent. We cannot overemphasize it. Similarly, energy provision is critical. Reliable, sustainable energy. We are now in a realm where the world is talking about green industrialization. Industrialization driven by green technologies. And those green technologies actually rely on African critical minerals, right? So for us to not just be the suppliers of critical minerals, but to really be the beneficiators of those minerals and play a role in green technologies, we need energy. Reliable, stable, affordable supply of energy. So there is an urgency on the continent to electrify this continent, to make sure that we can be the formidable player that we know we can be as Africa in the global political economy.
And I can already see the energy is there, it's in full swing. Isn't she just an enthusiastic, convincing new AU Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, flying the South African flag high, but of course representing the continental agenda, really outlining the plans that need to be undertaken, but the urgency, the speed and agility with which these plans need to be executed. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.